Origin just home series reaction. This is what the Israel and Iran strikes just revealed by channel task and purpose. I saw the video that this channel posted about US defense system against things like this based on the Iran attack, right? So when this was revealed, it was like really stressful situation in a way that Iran's gonna attack in 48 hours or something. That was the thing, right? Because they already knew it for some reason. And some people suggested this might be political thing rather than just point blank attack, but I always thought like, okay, but why with 300 rockets or something, right? If you're just gonna attack something, just want to give warning or something, you would like attack with a few, like 50, 100, 300. That feels like a big number. It's not like Iran is just like swimming in missiles or something. It's not that easy. So to me, it always felt like, I don't know, man, right? Was this a warning? Because yeah, 99% of those were like intercepted, 95, 99%. Now that there's like two elements of that. Maybe because Iran knew that, Iran already said it in advance, but that again maybe not, right? During times of warfare, we always like either underestimate or overestimate somebody. Nowadays, it's like usually overestimation, like what a country can do, right? So I don't know, maybe this was like either it could be both of those things. Like they did say it in advance, but they hoped that at least half of them would strike or something. So it's like political thing as well. Like, okay, we had to respond type of way, but also like enough damage that Israel comes to the table or something. I don't know, with negotiation and things. So I guess I think even they were surprised if that 95, 99% was intercepted. I don't know, but this is gonna be an interesting video. Let's watch it. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe so that way I know we start videos tomorrow. Check out the reaction, there's a link in the description, and yeah, let's watch it.
It looks like we just dodged World War III and parried a regional war. For now, worry not, that could all change tomorrow. Because Israel and Iran directly struck each other on their own territory for the first time in history this week. I think that the weapons, tactics, and targets each side chose just revealed a lot to us about their respective capabilities and the message that each side was intending to send to the other. So the big question everyone wants to know right now is what extent of Iran's offensive capabilities did they actually use? How much damage did they really intend to deliver? Was this all essentially the equivalent of a warning shot, a limited strike, or was it meant to inflict massive damage? I think there's some evidence to support both of those theories, so I'll present each side to you now, and I'll add some of my own personal insights so you can make up your own mind. First, the facts. Iran's April 13th attack on Israel included 130 ballistic missiles, 30 cruise missiles, and 170 of the smaller kamikaze drones for about a total of 330 munitions. In military parlance, we call that a strike package, which refers to a coordinated grouping of different military assets deployed to execute a specific strike mission against an enemy target. Or another way of putting that is Iran specifically chose those three types of weapons for a very specific purpose. The evidence to support the first theory, that this was not Iran's full capabilities, comes from the Iranian claim that they gave the United States, Turkey, Jordan, and Iraq 72 hours of warning that they would launch this attack. They claim that they added a diplomatic tag onto that strike package by essentially telegraphing in advance that they would launch an air attack on Israel. Now, Turkey, Jordan, and Iraq all confirm that Iran gave them 3 days of warning. If we take them at their word and believe that, then it's also likely that one of them passed on that information to the United States under the table unofficially. The reason to believe this is because the US military's close relationship with all three of those countries. However, the United States officially claims that they were given no such warning. The claim here is that the United States, Israel, United Kingdom, and Jordan all had 72 hours to move air defense assets into the region to have them on high alert, ready for the attack. Proponents of this theory also point to the fact that it took 12 days for Iran to retaliate after Israel struck their embassy in Syria, instead of attacking right away. Another point brought up in this theory is that Iran only fired...
Oh, look there. I thought, obviously I'm not up to date with this situation, but I didn't know Israel attacked Iran's embassy. What happened before that? Like, I don't know, man. I assume that Iran basically like answering because of Gaza thing, right? Like, Israel is not pulling out of Gaza or Gaza attack, so Iran's like, okay, that's it, we have to attack that. I didn't know like Israel attacked Iran's embassy. Where is this going, right? Is it just escalation left and right? Is this like political element behind it? I don't know.
Fired 130 of their 3,000 ballistic missiles in their arsenal. The idea that this was only meant to be a limited strike also has to do with the fact that the Shahed drones that were used only travel at about 185 kilometers per hour, so it took between 6 to 9 hours to reach Israel. In fact, I remember what it felt like to hear about the attack on the news, and then there was this really long period of over 6 hours where everyone kind of awkwardly and stressfully waited for these slow-moving drones to make their way across the region to see what effect they would eventually have. And even if we are to believe that the United States was given 3 days warning, how would we know that they'd be able to shoot all those down? We only know that in hindsight. More evidence also comes from what didn't happen as much as what did happen, because there was no second salvo. It estimated to cost Israel between $500 million and $1 billion worth of anti-air defense munitions to shoot down the Iranian attack, which likely cost them $200 million on their end. So the question is, for how long of a sustained period of time could this type of attack be prevented? A counterpoint to that would be if Iran continued missile salvos and strikes like this for a longer period of time, then Israel would choose to go on the offensive with their allies with their own missile strikes to prevent them. Okay, for the second theory now, let's assume this was actually Iran's best attempt at inflicting maximum...
Yeah, what I think is like they don't want to antagonize like US. I think that's what it is. They don't want like touch our boats version 2. Because in the end, like what US was 50 years ago, US is even much stronger today, right? The way everything scales with economy, right? US's economy is even stronger compared to other like Middle Eastern countries, Asian countries, things like that, right? I mean, not Asian countries because we have to like exclude something like China or something, but basically Middle Eastern countries and things like that. So they don't want to go toe-to-toe with USA because if they're like attack point blank Israel, they will have to go against USA, right? So maybe it's like both of things. I think they hope that it would do some damage. So like it's like a blow, enough of a blow that Israel like, okay, let's scale back. That's what they would think. But not too much that USA and everybody just has to respond or something. So I don't know. I think it was like a middle of all things.
Damage on Israel. The evidence for this comes from the fact that this strike package is a meta we've seen before. It's the same tactics that Russian forces have used in their war in Ukraine to try to overwhelm Ukrainian air defense systems. The theory that this was intended to inflict maximum damage comes from the fact that the ballistic missile chosen by Iran, like the EMAD, fly at a supersonic speed of 3,800 miles per hour and travel in a high arcing trajectory that's difficult to shoot down, while cruise missiles fly lower at a more straight 750 miles per hour. Using these differing speeds and trajectories, these weapons and this weapon package suggest to us that
ballistic missile is in the name. It's like a bullet, right? Once it re-enters the atmosphere once from the space, it's literally like a bullet, right? It's like, can you stop a bullet in midair in that small scale? Basically, I'm saying like somebody shoots us with a sniper. Can you stop that? Is there a technology to stop that? So ballistic missile would be something similar to that. So of course it's going to be harder to stop ballistic missile. It's surprising to me we have technology to do that at all, right? Whether doesn't matter how accurate or not.
Iran has every intention of causing massive amounts of damage with this attack. Yes, it's true that launching slow-moving drones give ample warning because it's quickly detected, but from Iran's point of view, that was worth it because they hoped that these drones would overwhelm, distract, and confuse Israel's air defenses for when the ballistic and cruise missiles arrived. Iran carefully timed the launch of their drones and ballistic missiles to arrive in the same window to confuse air defense systems. The Institute for the Study of War had an interesting take on this. They reported that the Ukrainians have an overall interception rate of about 46% for recent large-scale ballistic missile strikes against them, and sometimes that number is as low as 16% recently. The ISW states that this indicates that Iran had every reason to believe that Israel's interception rate would likely be around that, possibly a little bit higher. So the average infantryman math here suggests that even if the Iranian military planners believed 60% of their missiles would be intercepted, then that means that they expected 198 of their munitions to hit their intended targets. No one really anticipated that the US, Israel, and Allied interception rate would be between 95 and 99%. However, while that number is factually correct, it doesn't tell the whole story. When we look at the most dangerous and important metric, the ballistic missiles, That means that 93% of the ballistic missiles were intercepted. The fog of war still weighs heavily on this recent event because these numbers are still changing. A Wall Street Journal report indicates that in reality, about half of the ballistic missiles Iran fired failed to even reach their target. So about 65 missiles reached their target, and 9 of those got through. That suggests an interception rate lower of about 86%, which is still better than most experts would have anticipated, but it reveals that the US and its allies need to stay vigilant, and that underestimating our adversaries is not the right move.
Look, man, it's a war, right? Countries like Ukraine during the war is like nearly destroyed. Gaza Strip is you see photos and it's nearly destroyed. In war, you can hope to like stop certain type of damage. 86% is insanely good, right? People hoping like you have a system that can stop everything. That's never gonna happen. That's why people say don't go to war, stay at diplomacy, right? Because when diplomacy fails, it doesn't matter what you do, there is going to be damage, right? That's the thing. War is not something you can just like play around, right? There's going to be damage at both sides, regardless of what you do. Doesn't matter how good technology you have. That's the thing. Ballistic missiles are ballistic. That's the thing, like bullet, right? You can stop 86% of that. That's surprising.
It also reveals that Iran's missiles are unreliable and poorly made currently, although that might not always be the case in the future. So, how do we know some of those Iranian launches failed? The US military surveillance satellites detected infrared heat signature bursts of missile launches that fizzled out, and some of those missiles were found to have not reached their target, having fallen halfway there in Iraq and Jordan. Photos have been posted of these failed launches all over the web already. The fact that Iran waited 12 days after Israel's strike on the embassy in Syria to retaliate might not have been because they wanted to telegraph their attack, but it might be evidence that they needed a week or two to get all of their missiles into position and out of the safety of their underground bunkers. They needed to prepare the launches and get everything into position. If you've ever served in any branch of the military anywhere, or if you've worked for a large corporation or government, you know how nothing gets done in less than 12 days. In fact, it's surprising that they were able to launch that kind of attack that quickly, and it could be taken that they didn't telegraph anything. Here's how the ISW put it. Quote, "The strike package from Iran was modeled on those that the Russians have used repeatedly against Ukraine to great effect. The attack caused more limited damage than intended, likely because the Iranians underestimated the tremendous advantages Israel has in..."
Or the US and UK, countries like that is involved, right? They didn't thought of that. Okay, I think it's both things, right? I think they knew that this is gonna take time and they will know that we are attacking, so they just like send message in advance. So when they do intercept a lot of them, not this much, they didn't thought this much of them gonna intercept it, but when they do intercept a lot of them, they can just say like, this was political thing. We told you in advance, next time you'll never see it coming. Even if they didn't advertise, even they didn't warning in advance, right? They would still would have intercepted because they would have seen it coming anyway. So this way they can have like political thing, right? Like, okay, we didn't give you the full power or something. People really need to understand like where US is when they spend a lot of money on technology and things compared to other parts of the world, other countries, right? So it's not surprising when toe comes to blow, directly or indirectly, US is gonna have immense edge on things, right? It's ridiculous to think that the level of money the US spends on technologies and R&D and things they develop, that can't be matched by something like any other countries, Iran or otherwise, right? That's the whole thing, right? People only like, China's GDP and spending is kind of close to US. So China is the one country people think like, okay, if China versus USA does happen, maybe we'll have to see like who comes on top or something. Even then US has advantage, right? But Middle Eastern countries like Iran and things, doesn't matter how military wise they are, right? US is going to have an edge. And if US is involved, of course, they're going to intercept a lot of missiles.
Defending against such strikes compared to Ukraine, the Iranians will learn lessons from this strike and work to improve their abilities to penetrate Israeli defenses over time, as the Russians have done in repeated strike series against Ukraine. So that is to say, even if Iran's attack failed to succeed at what it was trying to accomplish, we should not underestimate our adversaries and should not assume future strikes would also be unsuccessful. The fact that it failed to inflict more damage should be a huge relief, Because as we'll soon see, Israel's retaliation was a far different style of attack, and it might have been a very muted one due to the limited damage. Another thing to consider is that this was a combined allied effort on the part of Jordan, Israel, the United Kingdom, the US, to stop the incoming missiles. And there's no guarantee that those countries would step in to help again for Israel in the future under different circumstances. One point that could be in the favor of either theory is the fact that Hezbollah in Lebanon fired 70 rockets at Israel on April 13th, the same day of the Iranian attack. This might have been done in coordination to further saturate and weaken Israel's air defenses ahead of Iran's attack. Or you could say it was a limited strike and shows that if Iran really wanted to cause more damage, they would have requested a larger strike from Hezbollah. You might ask, why didn't Iran fire more ballistic missiles? They have 3,000 of them supposedly in their stockpile. Part of the reason for that might be because we forget that just because you have more missiles doesn't mean you have more launchers. It's likely Iran has between some...
And even then, like, they've launched 10% of the stockpile. If they have 3,000, they shot like 200, 300, whatever, right? You don't want to shoot a lot of them because afterwards you have less now, right? 3,000 might sound a lot, but that means like if you want to do like full-scale war, then you would launch like a half of them, like 1,500 or something, right? 300 is still a lot for a strike like this, right? Just because you have 3,000, you're not going to launch a lot of them, right? You would keep that for a full-blown war or something.
Somewhere 100 and 200 missile launchers, which limits their ability to fire per salvo. One of the downsides of firing such a high volume of fire of munitions like Iran did is just how public it is. When you shoot 330 munitions, everyone would very publicly see the damage if a high percentage of them got through Israel's air defenses. Their airfield would be cooked if a lot of them hit their target. Instead, now that the dust has settled on these attacks, we have a better picture of what really happened. According to United States officials, a total of 9 Iranian missiles hit the ground in Israel. Iran claims it was their hypersonic missiles that hit their targets, and technically anything over Mach 5 or 3,800 miles per hour is hypersonic as far as I know. According to the US damage assessments, the missiles only managed to damage an Israeli C-130 aircraft on the airfield. In this day and age, damage assessments can be done a few days later by ordering a public satellite image of the location. Almost anyone can open source it now. The Associated Press investigated and saw the strike caused limited damage on Israel. This is why we know that the United States and Israel aren't lying about their interception rate. But that brings us to our next point, which is what was Iran really targeting inside Israel? What message were they trying to send with that target? They appear to have been targeting the Nevatim air base. It's said to be where they have struck the Iranian embassy from in Syria on April 1st, which killed 2 of their Quds Force generals. 5 of the Iranian ballistic missiles hit this airfield specifically. This suggests that the message Iran was trying to send, likely, was that this was in retaliation for Israel's strike on their consulate. Why did Israel attack the embassy and cross what is seen as a red line? From their perspective, Iran was using it as a means to plan attacks against them. Israel believes that Iran helped plan and execute the October 7th attack against them, and whether you believe that is true or not isn't the point when we try to understand why this happened, not whether or not it was justified.
Yeah, look, man, I don't know, man. Before the embassy attack, was Iran attacking Israel in directly some way? Because if not, isn't this like Israel being the like aggressor in a way, right? Look, man, I know how this war started, right? But after that, a lot of decision could have been done well, right? You can't just say like, oh, he hit me first as an excuse to do anything, right? So when it comes to Israel, I think Israel could have done a lot of things right, but they overdid certain things, right? I don't know. That's what it feels like. Who knows? But in the end, this war, this Israel war is like multiple decades, near half a century, that old, right? It always pops up few decades here and there. So I don't know what Israel's targeting was. Did Israel really hope to like, okay, we are gonna end this, for good or something? Like we are gonna, make sure that this thing doesn't pop up, and they just try to go all in, and it just became this kind of a horrible thing where Gaza is mostly destroyed and things like that. Was that Israel's mentality? I don't know what it is, but from me sitting here, I think Israel went a bit too much, right? At start it made sense, but over time it's just like destruction after destruction. Entire Gaza Strip is destroyed. Like, come on, man. right? It feels like, okay, you need to come to the middle and come to the diplomatic table or something. That's what it felt like to me. I don't know much details behind it, but with the, like embassy strike, was Israel the aggressor? Because if that's the case, I don't know where this is going, right? I don't know if Israel becomes the aggressor over and over again. Will US back them up, right? Because the war started, as Israel being the defendants, right? So US is behind them, even India is behind them, all these countries are behind them, all right? But if Israel keeps becoming the aggressor, does like more damage than they should, where reasonably it looks like they're doing more damage than they should, right? Missiles striking a hospital in Gaza, this and that. If that keeps happening, right? I don't know, will people back Israel after that? Because this whole situation feels like very confusing and very complicated, right? It's really hard to understand, like, where is who, like everything's blurred out. Where is good, where is bad, now where to look at it, right? At the start it made sense because Gaza attacked like Israel, you knew that, right? So you can automatically assume like, oh come on, like that's not, of course Israel gonna respond. But now after all this, like where this is going? Attacking embassy, was Iran attacking Israel at that point? That's why they responded. I don't know the details behind that, right? So this is just escalating. Was this Iran just, I think Iran was being both sides. Iran hoped for some damage while also like giving warning so nobody just completely retaliates, right? So it looks like some kind of a retaliation or something. They didn't just point blank attack Israel, because I'm pretty sure if they wanted to, they can launch a lot of missiles and that would do damage. If that does happen, I don't know where this is going, right? Because at that point, like US and everybody would join and like attack Iran. Where that goes from there, who the fuck knows, right?
The fact that at least one or a handful of missiles got through Israel's air defenses could be a message that Iran is capable of putting pressure on them and hitting their targets, and to psychologically suggest what would happen if a larger weapon payload were used, like a nuclear strike, for example. The other target that Iran went after was the Negev airfield base in south of Israel, in the Negev desert, which is close to where Israel's nuclear facility is located. Israel is rumored to have nuclear weapons, which they neither confirm nor deny. 4 of the ballistic missiles hit this airfield in Israel. This could have been Iran attempting to send a message that they could strike Israel's nuclear capabilities if they wanted to. Now, when we look at the Israeli retaliation, now that the dust has settled, it appears Israel had a very different strike package and strategy, as well as different intended message. Reports as of right now indicate that Israel fired only 3 missiles with no real warning, and they neither confirmed nor denied they were behind it. Early reports suggest that these might have been 3 air-to-ground missiles that were fired by Israeli fighter jets. For years, we've heard reports of Israeli F-35 fighters entering and exiting Iranian airspace without them being detected. Israel has been training for this kind of stealth mission for years. So just the...
Oh, F-35s weren't detected, huh? Who would have thought of that? Yeah. Of course, Iran in general can detect that. We've known that, right? That was the news past few years or something, right? Iran has capabilities. But how accurately? Where they are they still here? Like, went back home already.
The facts, on the night of April 18th, Israel struck Iranian air bases in the central city of Isfahan and Tabriz. Explosions were also heard in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad in Syria. Syria claimed that their air defense networks were hit by Israeli missiles. This low volume of fire could potentially be a way to send a message to Iran without forcing their hand to retaliate again with a large ballistic missile attack, which could stress expensive air defense systems. If Israel had attacked with their own large volume of ballistic and cruise missiles that we know they have, it would have escalated things further. Iran claimed the attack was only a few drones that they say they intercepted all of with their air defense systems. Again, open source satellite images allow us to verify what state media and officials claim and compare it to the truth. The BBC stated that they verified damage that was done to the Iranian Isfahan airbase where anti-air systems were knocked out. Here are the images of the reported damage. How did the BBC do this damage assessment? Quote, optical imagery will be familiar to anyone who regularly uses Google Earth, essentially a photograph of the land below. SAR technology, on the other hand, uses radio waves to build an image of the Earth's surface. One S-300 Iranian air defense site appears to have been destroyed. We know that Iran has air bases all over their country, including several ones in closer proximity to Israel. So why might Israel have chosen to target this specific one in Isfahan? One theory is the fact that it was located only 120 kilometers, or about 1 hour's drive, from Iran's largest nuclear facility, the underground Natanz enrichment complex. Iran claims that their nuclear program is for purely peaceful purposes, while Israel believes that Iran is working on developing nuclear weapons at these sites. This is close to the same location where Iran is currently digging a new nuclear facility, which will be allegedly 90 meters underground and deep enough to be out of range of bunker buster airstrikes. So if Israel hypothetically wanted to send a message that they can get munitions through Iran's air defense systems and theoretically strike Iran's nuclear facility, the Isfahan air base would be the closest place to target. After this tit for tat,
oh my god, right? There was a big thing past few decades about Iran and Iran like not having nukes, and now it's like having nukes under Trump. Something happened. Like Iran is like claiming, like this is for peaceful. People are claiming that Iran is building nukes. I didn't know that would come into play this fast. Now it's like, okay, Israel has nuke as well. Iran might have nukes. I don't know. I hate this, man. I hate both of sides. I've said this many times. I hate any war, right? Doesn't matter what. This is he's to fault, me is to fault, like finger pointing. I don't give a fuck about all that, right? In the end, it's a war, right? I hate all of it. Doesn't matter what the reason is. I always like the person or the entity, country, whatever, regardless of what. Try to find middle ground and then try to stop the war. Doesn't matter what, right? So I always try to see who could have had some advantage over things where they could have bring some people to table and try to do peace talks, right? I always look for that. That's the right thing to me. Not that, oh, they attack first. Surely the other one's gonna attack as well. Then they attack. This is just gonna escalate. It's escalation. That's what that is. I always try to find the middle ground, like who has the best opportunity to bring people to the table. That is the only thing that matters, right? Because it doesn't matter what it is. War is like digging a hole. Doesn't matter what it is, it's a hole. Only way to get out of that hole is to like not do war. That is what not hole is. Doesn't matter how many responses you do, you keep digging different type of holes. That's what that is, right? There is no good or bad. No, there is no bad or good or any element gonna come out of that, right? It's just gonna be all around bad. It's just gonna be like worse, right? Even if you win, you didn't really win because it was a war, right? World War II ended. There were allies won. But in the end, they would have preferred if there was no World War II because nobody really won. Everything was destroyed type of way. So I don't know where this is all going, man. I hate this shit, right? But, when I was knowing like Gaza and Israel thing is going, I'm like, eventually they will basically stop. Eventually someone will come to table. Now Iran has joined. Iran might have nuclear weapons. Israel has nuclear weapons. This is a big thing, man. Like in Russia, Ukraine doesn't have nukes. Ukraine is fighting a home war turf. People can pressure Russia to back off. That's what their hope was. But it was mostly one-sided in that way, right? Both countries didn't have nukes. Now there are countries are fighting that both have nukes, and both things might escalate. Who the fuck knows? This is just insane, man. I don't know what's happening.
That exchange from Israel and Iran, state media from both sides downplayed the exchange.
It was not a strike. 2 or 3 very they're like more like toys that our children play with, not drones. It was not worth telling us before it happened.
Iranian leader Khomeini said the following to this point. Quote, debates by the other party about how many missiles were fired, how many of them hit their targets, and how many didn't, these are of secondary importance. The main issue is the emergence of the Iranian nation and Iranian military's will in an important international arena. This is what matters. The debate about how many missiles were fired and if they hit their targets is kind of the primary importance if you ask me, but okay, difference of opinion there. From my perspective, it shows that we should double down on air defense, which is actually the main funding in the United States' $95 billion foreign aid package. $26 billion is earmarked for Israel. Of that, $9 billion is for humanitarian aid for Gaza, and the rest is largely for Israeli air defense systems, which is likely one of the main things that I think helped prevented this from spiraling into a larger war for the time being. And both sides had incentive to claim less damage was done and that their air defense systems performed well. Israel did not push the claim that they caused great damage, and it appears like for now we've avoided.
Alright, for some reason audio cut off here. Now, for all the blurring, don't blame me. I mean, I don't want to edit, you know, I don't want to spend time editing things, but hey, I have to do that because of YouTube. And as far as what I was saying here, basically what I'm saying is like, this is all just effed up, right? You know, everything, all the wars in the end turns out to be like, it's like digging a hole in the end, right? Everything is just fucked up. Everything just you know, like, doesn't matter what you do, you're just gonna end up with less than what you already have. So, you know, I like whenever somebody just basically brings people to the table, right? Negotiation table, diplomacy, things to end at diplomacy, who's to fault, who's not to fault, right? I don't know what all the details about what's happening during this time, but yeah, it's just panicky situation. Iran attacks, Israel attacks, Iran attack. It's just like back and forth. At least one thing I like about this, that you know, Israel with the response actually tried to do surgically way, so you know, no, they can't be blamed, so things don't escalate. And the way Iran attacked, they basically tried to make it sure that it seems like a response to the embassy attack. So at least people are thinking about, okay, we don't need to escalate things, because with the nukes and shit, yeah, things are just gonna go bad basically. But yeah, let's hope this doesn't escalate. And yeah, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.